In our headlines on this Tuesday, May 27th, here in South Korea. We are now counting down exactly 1 week to the June 3rd snap election, and presidential hopefuls are gearing up for their final TV debate tonight to be aired live at 8 in the evening. Meanwhile, findings for the month of May show Korea's consumer confidence rising, with its sentiment index hitting 101.8, indicating a tangible sense of optimism over pessimism. And on the international front, Germany is removing range restrictions placed on weapons provided to Ukraine amid an alarming escalation in the size and scope of Russia's aerial assaults in recent days. Welcome to the Daily Report. Korea's presidential hopefuls have been spending this Tuesday mostly preparing for their final TV debate scheduled to be aired live 3 hours from now. That would be at 8 this evening. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young starts us off.
With 1 week to go until the election, presidential hopefuls scaled back their campaigns ahead of their final televised debate on Tuesday evening. Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung did not hold any rallies on Tuesday, choosing instead to focus on preparing for the debate. Meanwhile, the DP encouraged people to participate in early voting, which begins on Thursday. Highlighting the record high turnout in overseas voting, the party said this reflects public sentiment against what it calls insurrection forces. It added that it plans to maintain this momentum through early voting. The party also continued its criticism of People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo.
Every time he speaks, it's all false propaganda and misleading agitation. He's a dangerous person. To him, honesty is just a mask, and morality is nothing more than a prop.
The PPP's Kim Moon-soo has been putting in efforts to rally as much support as possible from across the political spectrum, including undecided voters, ahead of early voting. Kim met with former President Lee Myung-bak over lunch on Tuesday in what was seen as an effort to consolidate support among conservative voters. A PPP spokesperson told reporters that Lee encouraged Kim and advised him to make a sincere effort to pursue a merger with the Reform Party's Lee Jun-seok. This comes a day after Kim met with former Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun. Following the meeting, Lee, a former chief of the DP, voiced his support for Kim on Tuesday, saying that he would join efforts to prevent what he called a monster dictatorship if Lee Jae-myung were to win the election. With 2 days to go until early voting, the PPP expressed confidence in a major comeback.
Kim Moon-soo's character and abilities stand in sharp contrast to Lee Jae-myung's, leaving a strong impression on voters. A major turnaround is coming.
Meanwhile, Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok reaffirmed his determination to stay in the presidential race, rejecting a merger with the PPP. During a press conference on Tuesday, he said he would not join forces with those responsible for the declaration of martial law and that he would fight to the end and win. The third debate between the candidates will take place from 8 p.m. this evening and last for 2 hours. They will discuss political polarization, political reform, and possible constitutional amendments. Other topics will include foreign affairs and national security. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Indeed, the candidates will be sharing their thoughts on defense and diplomatic strategies during their debate tonight. But ahead of that four-way discussion, my colleague Kim Jong-sil took the liberty of preparing for us a quick rundown of the foreign policies of the top 3 presidential contenders. To take a listen.
In the final stretch of the presidential race, foreign policy may not be driving the race at home, but outside South Korea, eyes are on how the next president will navigate the situation on the Korean peninsula. Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung favors a pragmatic, multi-layered strategy. His foreign policy centers on a strong ROK-US alliance while expanding diplomatic engagement with China, Japan, and Russia.
With a strong ROK-US alliance, I'll lead a pragmatic, national interest-based diplomacy to expand South Korea's global role and secure lasting peace.
He also backs the return of wartime operational control from the current U.S.-led command structure to South Korea and phased nuclear talks with the North. By contrast, People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo takes a tougher line. He argues that in a region surrounded by constant threats, diplomacy must be backed by credible deterrence.
If the US forces were gone, how would we deal with China? With North Korea, how would a divided nation like ours, surrounded by Japan and Russia and facing the worst geopolitical conditions ever, handle the North's nuclear threat?
Kim also supports reviewing tactical nuclear deployments if North Korea's threats escalate. At the same time, he backs developing nuclear-powered submarines to counter North Korea's SLBM-capable subs, citing India and Australia as precedents. Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok has yet to lay out a full foreign policy platform, but his defense proposals focus on internal reform, expanding officer recruitment through conscript performance, and linking military service to academic support. With global uncertainty mounting, South Korea's next president will be expected to act swiftly, whether through alliances, deterrence, or reform. And with just a week left before the vote, the country's foreign policy future remains wide open. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And South Korea marked its first Aerospace Day on this Tuesday as it seeks to make significant strides in space exploration. And amid the auspicious occasion, acting President Lee Joo-ho attended a ceremony at the Korea Aerospace Administration in Sacheon, Gyeongsangnam-do Province to commemorate the first anniversary of the agency's founding. There he pledged full support for the development of reusable launch vehicles and ultra-high-resolution satellites, while stressing the importance of public-private collaboration on the final frontier. He was also at the Korea Aerospace Industries today for talks with related experts. In other news, findings for the month of May show Korea's consumer confidence is regaining strength. Our Park Jun-han has the latest numbers.
South Korea's consumer sentiment in May saw its largest increase in 4 years and 7 months. The Bank of Korea released on Tuesday the country's Composite Consumer Sentiment Index, which reflects consumers' views on the state of the economy. Rising by 8 points from April's 93.8 to 101.8 in May, the index recorded its strongest one-month gain since October 2020. A CSSI above 100 indicates optimistic consumer sentiment compared to the average of the last 20 years. For the past 5 months, the index has remained below 100. However, as the index in May surpassed 100, it signaled a shift from pessimism to optimism. The index's 6 elements, including current living standards and prospective household spending, all saw a rise in May, with prospective domestic economic conditions rising by 18 points compared to last month. Among the various components, several indicators pointed to a rise in optimism. This shift is likely tied to the 90-day suspension of reciprocal U.S. tariffs that helped ease some concerns over global trade uncertainty. Also, expectations surrounding the new administration's economic policies after the upcoming election, along with anticipated progress in South Korea-U.S. tariff negotiations, contributed to the boost in consumer confidence.
The domestic political uncertainty will be resolved with the presidential election on June 3rd. It's also true that the tariffs aren't as severe as they were initially stated.
Meanwhile, prospective housing prices in May recorded 111, 3 points higher than last month. The outlook for housing prices has been rising for 3 straight months, as more people expect further increases due to continued apartment price hikes in the metropolitan area. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Korea's cosmetic production and exports hit new highs last year, soaring over 20% on year. According to the Drug Safety Ministry on this Tuesday, shipments overseas amounted to $10.2 billion, raising South Korea's ranking to 3rd place for exports of cosmetics, right after France and the US, respectively. Now, South Korea outperformed Germany, which previously ranked 3rd. Germany is removing range restrictions placed on weapons provided to Ukraine amid an alarming escalation in the size and scope of Russia's aerial assaults in recent days. Our Isingje tells us what this means.
Germany has joined other Western supporters of Ukraine in removing range restrictions on weapons being delivered to Ukraine. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Monday announced that his country will be joining the likes of the United States, the UK, and France in lifting the restrictions in order to allow Ukraine to be better able to hit military targets on Russian territory. Merz says while there will be opposition from some EU member nations, including Hungary and Slovakia, it won't stop Germany and other bloc members from their continuous support of Ukraine. The German Chancellor also said a small minority could not be allowed to determine the decisions of the entire European Union, and that by removing restrictions on weapons, Ukraine can now defend itself by attacking military positions in Russia. In response, Russia called the decision dangerous, saying it would be detrimental to any chance of a peace deal, with Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Monday saying such decisions are completely at odds with any hopes for a political settlement. The Western allies of Ukraine had initially restricted the use of long-range missiles to targets only within Ukrainian territory under Russian occupation. However, after the dispatch of North Korean troops to the Kursk region, the US and the UK began authorizing the use of long-range missiles to strike targets in Russia. 이승재, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East, there have been dozens of more deaths following an Israeli airstrike on a school in Gaza. Now, Israeli forces claim the school served as a Hamas hideout. Palestinian authorities say it was a shelter for displaced women and children. Our Chejihi reports.
On Monday, a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City's Daraj neighborhood was one of the two targets hit by an Israeli airstrike. Hundreds of people, mostly women and children, were sheltering there at the time.
This isn't normal. What kind of missiles are they dropping? What are they doing? I don't understand. All of them were children. The 3 children were burned along with their mother.
According to Gaza's civil defense, the attack, which reportedly occurred while occupants were sleeping, killed at least 36 individuals and injured dozens of others. The Israel Defense Forces said the strikes targeted a Hamas and Islamic Jihad command and control center, believed to be operating within the school premises. They asserted that the facility was being used for planning attacks against Israeli civilians and troops. However, local witnesses and Palestinian officials have denied the presence of militants at the site.
There is no military in it. There is not even a piece of a weapon in it.
In a separate strike, 16 people were killed when the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza was hit. The attacks have drawn international condemnation, including from German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who cautioned against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu taking excessive military actions. Merz said he no longer understands what Israel is trying to achieve. Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister said legislation for a potential ban on imports from Israeli settlements would be unveiled on Tuesday. Also on Monday, a new aid system in Gaza backed by the U.S. opened its first distribution hubs, following months of being blockaded by Israel. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has taken over the handling of aid, and truckloads of food delivered to its hubs have begun to be distributed to Palestinians on the same day. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
In the UK, dozens of people, including children, were hurt after a British driver rammed his minivan into football fans celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title Monday evening. Our Ian Jin covers this calamity.
On Monday evening, Liverpool fans came out in the tens of thousands to celebrate the team's Premier League victory. As the parade was wrapping up, a minivan drove into a crowd of fans on Water Street in Liverpool's city centre just after 6 p.m. local time, shortly after the bus carrying the Liverpool team had passed by. The vehicle struck several pedestrians before coming to a stop. A video on social media showed the van strike a man, tossing him in the air. Ambulance officials said that 20 people were treated at the scene for minor injuries, while 27 were taken to the hospital, including 2 with serious injuries. At least 4 children were injured in the collision, and 4 people were trapped under their vehicle and had to be released by firefighters. The police said they believed it to be an isolated incident as they arrested the driver, a 53-year-old British man, at the scene. Authorities are not treating the incident as terrorism, but are investigating what led to the incident and have asked people to refrain from sharing distressing content online. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer described the incident as appalling and said those injured and affected are in his thoughts. Liverpool City Council leader Liam Robinson said on social media that the incident cast a very dark shadow over what had been a joyous day. Liverpool FC also posted on social media that their thoughts and prayers are with those who have been affected by this serious incident. 이은진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in a fresh threat against Harvard University, U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested taking away grant money for the university and giving it to trade schools instead. An Sung-jin has the latest.
The feud between the Trump administration and Harvard University continues to escalate. Trump posted on his social media, Truth Social, on Monday that he is, quote, considering taking $3 billion of grant money from a very anti-Semitic Harvard. He said he would redirect the $3 billion in federal grants to trade schools instead. Trump had previously cited concerns over anti-Semitism on campus for freezing $2.2 billion in grants. How Trump is to redistribute the funds and whether the grants come from the funding that he already froze is unclear. His latest remark comes after he demanded Harvard to release the name and nationalities of its international students, and comes less than a week since a judge halted the Trump administration from barring international students enrolling at Harvard. The Ivy League school had previously argued that the administration's actions were a blatant violation of the First Amendment and comes as the university opposes the government's demands to control Harvard's governance, curriculum, and the ideology of its faculty and students. Han Sung-jin, Arirang News.
North Korea's Mount Kumgang may be added to UNESCO's World Heritage list. The regime handed in a related application back in 2021, but the global COVID-19 pandemic postponed the review process. Evaluation is taking place this year, and a decision will be declared during the 47th World Heritage Committee meeting in Paris this July. If Mount Kumgang makes this list, it will be North Korea's third World Heritage site. Standing at just over 1,600 meters, it is considered one of the Korean Peninsula's most scenic mountains. Up next, we offer you a glimpse of an ongoing exhibition here that shares the works of a master who chose the power of color to evoke emotion. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
Art has a unique ability to transcend time. One artist who has the power is Marc Chagall, often called the painter poet of the 20th century. Chagall's works are known to blur the lines between dreams and reality, blending tradition with innovation, and where colors become emotions. More than 100 of his pieces have arrived in Korea for the Marc Chagall Beyond Time exhibition.
At first glance, Chagall's works may seem playful, full of vivid color and fairy tale-like shapes. But if you take a closer look, you'll be drawn into layers of meaning and emotion.
Chagall's works have visited Korea before, but this exhibition offers something never seen before.
These 7 works are privately owned, so it took months of persuasion to bring them here. As this exhibition marks 40 years since Chagall's passing, we hoped Korea would be the first place to unveil them.
Also drawing attention is Chagall's trademark, stained glass and ceiling works. Large-scale projections and soundscapes have recreated the ceiling of the Palais Garnier in Paris and stained glass windows from Israel's Hadassah Medical Center.
Stained glass and ceiling paintings aren't something you can display like traditional canvases. So we thought hard about how to present that part of Chagall's world. In the end, we created 2 immersive spaces, bringing in sound engineers and designing the setup with symbolic visual elements.
Rather than organizing his works chronologically, the exhibition unfolds through 8 thematic sections based on Chagall's life, such as his major commissions, Left for Paris, and Flowers.
We hope this exhibition isn't just an encounter with Chagall the artist, but with Chagall the human being. The paintings reflect his emotional journey, joy, sorrow, longing, and love.
You can explore Marc Chagall Beyond Time until September 21st at Seoul Art Center's 한가람 Art Museum. 송유진, Arirang News.
Also here on the local front, a state-run agency has been committed to developing mushroom varieties here at home to ease the burden of royalties and to expand Korea's list of export items. Our Cha Yoon-kyung reports.
The Korean mushroom variety, Arirang, which has recently begun to be exported to Southeast Asia, has a golden cap with a crisp texture. Even after it is fully grown, the mushroom cap does not spread and remains small, making harvesting and packaging easy. Rural Development Administration developed Arirang in 2018, targeting markets in Asia. This contains more than twice as many antioxidants called polyphenols and GABA, an amino acid which helps regulate nerve activity and relieve stress, similar to the white enoki mushroom.
We did pilot exports of Arirang to Vietnam and Hong Kong, and we received lots of favorable comments, especially for its texture.
The Seoron variety, which is also called the king oyster mushroom, is also a domestic type that is getting attention with its chewy texture. It also has a bigger cap than regular oyster mushrooms, so it is popular as a high-end cooking ingredient. So far, the number of mushrooms developed by the Rural Development Administration amounts to 53 varieties of enoki, button, and oyster mushrooms. Thanks to this, the localization rate of mushrooms rose 28.1 percentage points over 15 years, from 35% in 2009 to 63.1% last year. The royalties paid in foreign countries have thus decreased by more than 1/3.
As the varieties we've developed become available to farmers, they can now cut production costs. We can also save royalties paid in overseas on a national level.
The Rural Development Administration is planning to develop more high-quality mushrooms in the near future. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
Early summer weather continued in the middle of the day today. The areas shown in the yellow on the map exceeded 25 degrees Celsius. It rose up to 27 degrees in Seoul, 28 degrees in Kumgang, 29 degrees in Hapcheon, feeling as hot as summer already. It's going to get hotter and hotter. On Friday, daytime temperature in Seoul will move up to 29 degrees and to around 30 degrees in most parts of the country. However, there will be temperature swings of around 10 degrees all over the country. Please take care of your health. Tomorrow morning will be very similar to today with Seoul, Gwangju, and Daegu at 15 degrees. Highs will move up to 28 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju, 26 degrees in Chuncheon. There will be frequent showers this week. Showers are forecast all over the country tomorrow and Thursday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. A panel session is coming up next, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.